Okay, hello everybody. It is time to start this fifth webinar of the EOSC Governance Development Forum. I will have a short presentation and we have some questions and we can discuss. As you see, you are all muted now, but later when you can communicate through the to the chat or through the question answer, and I will open up for discussion later. So just for any newcomers, I would like to tell about what is this development forum. We really have, in the EOSCpilot, we have developed or established this forum to enable stakeholders to contribute to the governance development and a platform for information, dialogue and development. As the governance was one of the topics that raised a lot of interest, of course, around the European Open Science Cloud. And there is no possibility to a lot of organizations are involved in the project, but there are such a large amount of stakeholders and important stakeholders that of course cannot be directly involved, but to create the way to dialogue for this dialogue. And if you see the link below, there is a web page where these webinars can be found, the material and background and possibilities to actively give input to this dialogue. I will remind here first, we have discussed this before in these webinars about the EOSC declaration, and the Commission have asked for endorsement by tomorrow, 15th of December. And we have from the project participate in the various discussions with stakeholders directly and in meetings and in this time. And I've collected a few questions that have come up that might be some clarification. And I will start with this today and talk a bit about it. So there was the declaration can be seen as a conclusion of the European Open Science Cloud Summit that was in 12th of June, with led by the by DG RTD, and the Commissioner and the Director General was there leading the meeting. And there are really three sections in this declaration about data culture and fair data, research data services and architecture, and about governance and funding. And a number of statements on these topics can be found in this declaration. Specifically, of course, what is interesting here for this is the governance. And I would like to say something what we have done here around the governance and how we are working with this in the EOSCpilot. So in the governance, in the declaration, there is a statement on the governance framework. So it says that the EOSC governance framework will be co-designed, stakeholder-driven, and composed of three main layers. Institutional, including EU member states and European Commission. Second layer, operational, including governance board and relevant working committees, thematic and functional. And third level, advisory, including a stakeholder forum. Now we have to analyze this a bit, you can say that there is one level here that is strategic, and that is the EU member states and European Commission, and that is there, and that will not, of course, change because of the European Open Science Cloud. The member states and the European Commission is a strategic governance level in this. The other two levels are executive and advisory. And it's primarily these levels, of course, we can investigate in the EOSCpilot and do findings about how can this be organized and what are the different governance functions that are needed here. So this is primarily the levels here or layers here that we are addressing. And that, yes, to confirm this, I put the EOSCpilot logo there also. That's primarily our target. And you have seen this before, but just to then be sure to make clear what how this is in our governance layers. I mean, we see that there is an e-infrastructure layer, a data and content layer, thematic service layer, research community layer, not to be confused with the layers in the previous slide. We have a number of stakeholders. We have engagement context for these stakeholders in these layers. And the stakeholder, of course, appears here in different layers and in different contexts, depending on the type of activity or what the type of organization and remit and context is. On top of here is, of course, the strategic layer with the European Commission and the national and the member state that really deals with the research strategies and funding. And that is something that is, there are mechanisms for this in every country and the European Commission and how it works with calls and everything. And that is, of course, a structure that is there and will not change due to the European Open Science Cloud, but it is something that the European Open Science Cloud governance need to interact with or interface with, of course. So that is the strategic level. And the big colored blob here is then the executive advisory layer that we are looking to in the EOSCpilot and try to find out how to work with that. So just to make this clarification, because this is a question that have come up, how do the work in EOSCpilot map to these governance layers that are in the statement, in the EOSC declaration. So just to give examples here, I mean, for example, there is a top-down structures here. The EOSC implementation board need to be placed in here somewhere, and there are also bottom-up forums and like research on standards and tools here. So I would like to say something specifically on funding also, because it is part of the governance and we have a few tasks or things we deal with in funding. And funding is also mentioned, addressed, of course, in the declaration. And the declaration says that over time, a co-funding mechanism mixing different revenue streams for the EOSC will be set up to increase the accountability of the governance, building trust, sharing resources, and building long-term capacity for European research data, early implementation of the EOSC will pilot innovative business models, and support an integrated data and service platform for European research. So the keywords here are, of course, the co-funding and also different revenue streams. What can these different revenue streams be, and how one have to be innovative here and find different business models to support this integrated data and service platform. There is also another statement here on long-term sustainability. And I think there is an interesting here is that the member states and research funders will use existing and future resources strategically, which means that there need to be a discussion here across Europe. What does it mean that we use the existing resources and future resources strategically? So what is the common strategy for this? There is also a statement related to funding about rewards and incentives, and I will not go into detail on that today. But in the EOSCpilot then, we are also looking into the topic of funding or related to funding. We have no results to present on this so far. It is really work in ongoing work here. but we have formulated it as follows in short, that it is what we need to look into is how to leverage on member states' investments. So this is the existing resources and existing and future resources. And we will look into exploring mechanisms for better alignment of national infrastructure priorities and investment strategies and placing it in a European context. So this is directly out of our work plan for the EOSCpilot, and this is also very much aligned with this statement in the declaration then, that we have to look into this mechanism for how to build the strategies and for Europe then on this. We also have a task there, creation of EOSC in the EOSCpilot, a task creation of EOSC Funders Summit. So alignment of funding and policy for the build up and operation of the EOSC. So in partly this has already been jump started by the Commission with the EOSC Summit that was arranged in the spring now, or close to the summer. And we will, but this activity then will be aligned with the Commission, and they have taken the lead here, so to say, in a way. But see what the follow up here will be, because it for the long term this need to be an activity that where funders need to need to come together and make these strategic decisions. Another activity then looking into also preparatory work for business models to underpin EOSC sustainability, and that will deal with identify the principles and mechanisms through which the value within EOSC can be delivered and cost recovered. So this is another task in the EOSCpilot, and also, as you see, we are addressing something that that also is noted in the among the statements that need an issue. As I said, we have no results or interesting results yet to show this, but to show here, but it will come. And I inform of this now as just an information that what is in the declaration will be further investigated here also by the EOSCpilot, and will put more meat on the bones there. So if we make this assumption that we have the national, the existing investment, I mean, by member state and European Commission and other investments in place, and how can we form this stack then of layers that is needed to get the whole thing working? We have the infrastructure, data and content, thematic service, research communities. I remind you from the slide before. And what do we have today? Yes, we have the national, regional, and local research infrastructures and infrastructures that have various resources that are within interest of European Open Science Cloud. I mean, part from data resources to computing resources and other services. So what makes it interesting to have this visible on a European level? First of all, they must be credible. And what do I mean with that? They must be credible in the sense that they are interesting not only on a national, regional, and a local scope, but on a European scope. Are they of a general interest and use? So it is worth to include in a EOSC context. And for them to be included in the EOSC context, they must be compatible in several ways. I mean, technically compatible, organizationally compatible, and have an interface so they actually can be put in a larger context. Other resources that are there already are the international research infrastructures and e-infrastructures. Example here, I mean, all the S3 research infrastructures, Aeroforum members and that type of organizations. We have the European e-infrastructures, SCIAN, EGI, PRAISE, and EUDAT. by default, I would say they should be credible already. They are already acting on a European level and have a European interest. But are they compatible? Are they actually interoperable in a way that we can make it use or in use of it in an EOS context? Probably further work to do there. And then we have commercial cloud and service providers. And the same questions there. Are they credible and compatible to be included in a EOSC context here? So I think these are questions just to be put, but this is the kind of structure we are playing with and looking for how to populate this structure. So for to conclude this a bit, there are a number of open questions here that we have to work with, and just a few of them I've listed here, but maybe also open for discussion here in the meeting now. So one thing here, I mean, in the statements, it was talked about mixed revenue streams, different revenue streams. So what kind of revenue streams can be foreseen to be based for a co-funding model, and how plausible are they? I mean, we have the national research budget, we have the European Horizon 2020, and now the FP9 coming up. We have research funders, foundations. We have other easy instruments like public-private partnership and more there. What are the most plausible ways of the funding here, and how is this can be built? And what are the mechanisms member states can agree on to use the resources strategically, existing resources and future resources, to achieve sustainability of EOSC? And how to arrange cost recovery for transnational access. So this is very much on the funding level here, because if we are now using resources on the national, regional level that get visible and used on the European level, I mean, we have to some examples of this already, of course, but then it must be arranged here how we do the cost recovery for this transnational access. And there are many ways of doing this. Bartering, cloud credits have been discussed, an open market. We have the EC transnational and virtual access funding instrument. There is also like the open access policy, and I reflect this in the second question, in the last question here, are open access policies, in the sense that we have, for example, for some research infrastructures and praise, possible to be applied to national infrastructures. And with open access policies here, it means that the access is based, for example, purely on scientific merit. This is common for some research infrastructures, that large research facilities, where the access is open for anyone and only based on scientific, independently of what country you come from, but it is based on the scientific merit. Can this be a policy that is applied more generally, for example? Okay, there are these kind of questions we are addressing, and I have very little answers today, but this is for the future work here in the EOSCpilot. And we will come back to these questions here. So a bit what will happen. We have done a stakeholder mapping exercise, and then they were progressing with a framework which will conceptualize the range of stakeholders and interoperability objectives. So this is the governance work package in the EOSCpilot, that is, we are working with this. And we are assessing different governance approaches and how they can fit together. And we plan to have a framework for discussion very late summer. I mean, we presented a sneak preview in the last webinar a month ago. we will stay with that sneak preview for now, and soon have a more mature something more mature to present. But still, we are very interesting on this kind of material to have feedback and thoughts that come in, and give us more ideas how to continue the work. And I really encourage you that I'm happy to see so many participants in this event, for example, but also use the website and come with written input there. And we also arrange a number of workshops, and you can follow this governance development at the website. There are upcoming events. There will be a workshop in 2nd of October in Tallinn. So this is in conjunction with the ERG meeting and the Estonian presidency, where we'll have a governance development forum. The program is ready and available also. Yeah. In 2 days, very soon here, that the program will be available. I've told her now, and we will continue with this webinars and have more results. And then there is a large stakeholder engagement event, and the registration for that is up on the EOSCpilot website, and that is in November in Brussels. We're a few minutes late in the start, so if no further questions, I don't see anything. Shout if so. I think we end there. We will continue with this, and tentative date here for the next webinar is 12th of October, same time in the day. And I hope this is very useful to get some input, at least for us here, and I hope it is useful for you also. Thank you for today, and goodbye.